Hello, everybody, and welcome to Untether.tv. I'm your host and founder, Rob Woodbridge. If you recall, if you've been around with me for long enough, which I appreciate and thank you very much, and if you haven't, shame on you. Where have you been? But a couple of years ago, I sat down with a small boutique design and implementation firm called VaynerMedia. They are now 180 people, so huge, and it's Gary Vaynerchuk's company. And because I sat with them, simply because they did this really innovative thing with the then New Jersey Nets. The Nets sucked. They were not a good team in the NBA, in the National Basketball Association. They had 8 wins. They wanted to do something that was unique for a promotion at the end of the season. So what they did is they used Gowalla, which is now a dead company, but Gowalla, to offer virtual tickets in a 75-mile radius. They gave out 150 pairs of tickets to people who checked in and found the virtual tickets. And it set in motion what I think set the stage for a very innovative franchise in the Nets. They've since moved to Brooklyn. They've become the Brooklyn Nets. They have now in a new home called the Barclays Center. Now, we're not going to be talking about exclusively about these two things, but the apps that were created for the Barclays Center and for the Nets were done by a company called WillowTreeApps, and we are going to talk in depth about those apps and how, the Barclays Center is an incredible bastion of technology when it comes to venues. We'll talk about the integration with the Barclays Center app and the gameplay and the Nets app and all that kind of stuff, but more customers than that as well from this company who has just got some innovative clients like The Verge and so on. I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to bring Blake Cyrak in, who is the VP Design for WillowTreeApps. Blake, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm so, I love the Nets simply because they are it just seems to me like they're willing to try anything for their fans, to bring fans in the door and then to get them engaged once they're in there. And it's kind of this underlying thing that we see everywhere, which is, even if you're in the venue, people's heads are down. They're not watching the game anymore. They're interacting with these devices. So I love the theory here is that bringing those devices into the game as well. So I think this is going to be the longest conversation ever because I'm very excited about this. You're in Charlottesville, North Carolina.
Charlottesville, Virginia. Actually.
Okay, Charlottesville, Virginia. So not
Yes.
really close to Brooklyn.
No,
not at all.
No, not at all. Not at all. No.
What I'd like to know is a little bit more about WillowTree and
Sure.
your role in there and how long you guys been around and what you guys do and lay it on me right now.
Absolutely. So WillowTreeApps, we're a mobile strategy, design, development shop located in Charlottesville, Virginia, as you said. We have currently around 45 all in-house designers and developers. So we've grown very rapidly. We actually made the Inc. 500 last year as one of the 500 fastest growing companies in the United States, and that's based on the last 3 years of growth essentially. So basically, to give you just the very quick overview, the timeline. Basically, in 2008 we were founded by our founder and CTO Michael Pritchard. Which is when the iPhone SDK was first announced. He saw it as a tremendous opportunity in the iPhone where that would actually take computing eventually, and I think he made a good bet. So basically from there, we built our first iPhone app called Spotosaurus. It was actually a parking garage finder in New York City. It was one of the first sort of geolocated applications in the App Store. And that actually got some Apple press. So it was in some Apple ads. And that's really where the company started getting traction. Over 2009, we worked with companies like Crutchfield Electronics, Game Show Network, clients such as that. At that point, we were still very small, 2-3 people. 2010 is when we really started growing. That's when I actually joined the company in 2010 as one of WillowTree's first full-time employees. And since then, we were a one-room operation, actually across the street from where I currently am, around 4 or 5 people working together on the University of Virginia application, the Johnson & Johnson's Baby Center app, and we were basically heads down all the time on just working together on those apps. And then from there, we've grown to 45 over the past 3 years, which is phenomenal. So it's been a pretty wild, crazy ride. But in terms of verticals and the types of clients we have, I think you've already noted we're kind of all over the place, right? I mean, we are the mobile developer guns for hire, so to speak. So we have companies like Johnson Johnson's Babysitter, they serve up content to 20 million moms worldwide. We build all of their apps and support them, and we've been doing that since 2010. Valpak, so really the leader in mobile couponing at the moment. We built their apps and actually worked a great deal on their strategy as well as design for those. And then, I mean, it goes all the way from those consumer-focused apps like those in Barclays Center and The Verge, all the way to the other end of the spectrum for General Electric. We work on embedded industrial systems that you can find on factory floors for GE. So it's really we always stay on the leading edge of whatever's coming up, and that's really our overall strategy. Yeah, so that's the sort of overview of WillowTree that I can give you.
I mean, there's quite a bit here with you guys, simply because starting with the growth that has happened with you guys over the last little while. I mean, what do you? Then we're going to get into the apps. But what do you attribute that to? Is it just that the industry? It's kind of a dumb question because the industry just kind of woke up, right?
Right. Yeah. So I mean, you hit it on the head, right? So the growth in mobile is really what's feeding us. But I think largely, there are lots of shops like us, right? I mean, there are lots of development design shops out there. What really sets us apart is, really the wealth of experience and knowledge that has been baked into the very framework of the company. Which has built our client list, which is built, upon our portfolio. So that really sets us apart, I think.
Now, you said that you're doing some stuff for GE that it's not app related, is it?
Somewhat. I can't get too far into the details on that project, but it is app related, so to speak. Basically the entire industrial controller side of that is real rapidly changing, and we're helping them out with that.
Okay. Yeah. You don't have to give me the state secrets. It's so intriguing because we talk a lot about the mobile industry and mobile. These devices that we carry right now are just kind of interim conduits to kind of this pervasive, always-on computing capabilities, right? Which is ultimately going to be driven by the cloud and kind of dumb screens and connectivity, bursts of connectivity, that kind of stuff, right? Especially from the enterprise standpoint. And then you also touched on a thing, on a trend that I see, right, is that, consumer is this tip of the iceberg when it comes to mobile, and the iceberg, the hidden part of the iceberg underneath is the enterprise, which is starting to rumble and awaken to the power that mobile brings, and not apps I'm talking about, just productivity and enhancements and number crunching and analytics and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So you're right in the middle of that, aren't you?
We are, yeah, and we've built a few enterprise apps actually. So we work with a company called McWilliams-Ballard, which is a large real estate marketing company based in the Mid-Atlantic, and we actually built essentially a CRM iPad app to empower their sales force to keep track of their leads through their custom CRM backend. So we're absolutely seeing that in our clientele.
And that's what's fascinating about this is that I kind of liken mobile, or the capabilities of mobile, is to kind of the termination point for a lot of bad code, right? So you can have a CRM that's very complex, and you've seen it on. I mean, we've all interacted with this, where it's like it's too much of a labor to get content into it. Even like Salesforce.com, it's a terrible interface until you make it a good interface. So I love the idea that you can put spit and polish on an iPad app that hides all the crap behind. And you don't even have to worry about that. It makes it a pleasure to use. And that's what mobile, it's like the great equalizer for bad code, isn't it?
Yeah, in some cases. And that's actually really interesting you bring that up because, many times we've worked with backends and APIs that weren't optimized for what we really need, because I mean, part of a fundamental belief here at WillowTree is alongside great user interface and user experience design is fantastic and phenomenal performance optimization on the front end of our apps. And if we're building on top of a bad or suboptimal API or backend, many times we can't get the performance that we want. So we actually built tools in-house to help us deal with that. One of them is called Tango, that actually sits in between the suboptimal layer and the actual application layer to help us transmit that data in optimal ways.
I love it. I love it. Now you just need I'm an old guy, so I remember Tango and cache. You just kind of need that cache part is the what you get paid. Terrible joke.
Yes.
Terrible joke. And for you who are listening who don't know what Tango and cache is, just go and Google that. Go to IMDb and put in Tango and cache.
Yeah.
This is it's fascinating because I don't think that there's any better example of this merger of technology and place and experience than what has happened in the Barclays Center, right? Like they really, it seems to me like they built the Barclays Center in Brooklyn from the ground up, with this idea of making it the most technically sophisticated place to watch a game and connected place to watch a game. And it just seems to me like they've done everything right to be able to make it as much as a video game atmosphere as possible, right? When there's and then there's a basketball game going on the bottom. But I mean, how did you guys get involved with Barclays and the Nets? Like, these are big brands, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's largely based on much of our business is based on the quality of our existing apps and attributions that live within those apps, and the quality really speaks for itself. So that through other relationships that we've built in the industry led us to Barclays and Nets, and ultimately they chose us because we are known to build very premium custom interfaces that are handcrafted for the experience that we're trying to achieve. And Barclays Center, that's what they wanted, right? They wanted like you said, I mean, they were building the most advanced, sophisticated venue in the world. And that was their goal, and they wanted apps that matched that, right? So they wanted an app that, when you opened it, looked and felt and behaved like Barclays Center. So the entire design itself is actually based on the wayfinding documentation that was created by the world-class design firm Pentagram. So the app itself, it feels like an integrated part of Barclays Center, and that gets me really excited. So,
I love. I mean, and it should, right? But I want to make a little note about that, because I want to come back to that part of it, like
Sure.
And you've got to remind me here, because sometimes I go off on a tangent. But I'm very interested to understand, because it works so well within the confines of Barclays Center, right? The app and the Nets app as well. And I want to talk about the experience outside of it as well, in the living room. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just going to make a note of the living room. But you said something that I just love. I love hearing this, handcrafted, right? Mm-hmm. I've spoken to a lot of UI UX guys. They've spent a lot of time crafting their app like this. It's like the digital slow goods revolution, right? Where that you're trying to create an experience, and small changes in that experience make it so much better. And the amount of effort that goes into crafting it, I think gets lost in a lot of people. And I think that it differentiates between the successful and the unsuccessful apps, is the user experience. Like, the rest doesn't matter if you can't get them. So talk about that, like that, when you say handcrafted, what are you thinking of in your head as you guys are building out these apps?
So to be honest, I'm thinking about the hundreds of sketches that are sitting on my desk right now, right? That I've gone through iteration after iteration of of each layout before I even move to a wireframe, right? So it's thinking realistically about the problem you're trying to solve and trying to solve it in an elegant way, but realizing you're not going to come up with the right answer first. And ensuring that you're taking the right steps to it's kind of a cliche, passe saying at this point, but fail early, right? So that is integral to how we design apps at WillowTree, and yeah, you're right. I mean, it is a handcrafted process, everywhere from sketching to bringing those sketches to life in a wireframe and really understanding how a user is going to flow and navigate through the application. Iterating on those, taking those wireframes, turning them into pixel for pixel compositions, and really understanding how that app is going to look and feel on the device, pixel for pixel, before we write one line of code, right? And from there, we'll prototype it. Really, that prototyping phase will really bring out some of the inconsistencies that weren't thought through entirely in the early on design phase. And then we'll move on into full-on development. And the key there, and the reason we're all in-house here, the reason we don't have a bunch of satellite offices, we're not distributed, we're not a distributed workforce by any means, we don't outsource. The reason for that is to maintain a consistent level of quality throughout our entire process. So we have our design phase, our designers here interact directly with our developers, sitting sometimes right next to the design team. It's not often, or it's not rare for a developer to come over, interrupt a designer. We have a pretty open office layout, and say, hey, I've been working on this animation. Is this what you had in mind? And really, we have that collaborative environment that you just can't get with the distributed workforce as real time, right? So that all plays into that sort of handcrafted design phase that I'm talking about. Yeah.
So, how do you know when you've hit something? Right, like I mean, I can understand this. I don't think that people, maybe they do. People I talk to, it's the difference between something that is elegant and handcrafted and a lot of thought went into it. I think of Path, right? I don't use Path, but I think of the way that the small subtleties that they had, like their navigation in the bottom left corner that you push and it pops up, and the bounce, and it's beautiful, right? Like you appreciate that, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Path is a phenomenal app. Looks and feels beautiful, right? And that's actually what I just said is pretty key. Path doesn't just look beautiful; it also feels beautiful, right? That animation you noted from the bottom left navigation element, it pops out, and you can feel the craft and the quality that went into that interaction alone. But that interaction is also meaningful, right? It's not just glitz and glamour. It's not just a little bit of bling placed on the interface. It means something to the user in terms of a concept, which is you're expanding navigation out from a central point, which is a theme that recurs throughout the rest of the Path app. So playing on those themes, understanding what a user's perception of certain UI paradigms in iOS and Android are really important for any experience.
Well, I mean, were you influenced by anything? Like, is there anything like I remember? I'll give you. People always say like, what was it that really you think changed mobile, like this revolution that happened? And was it the iPhone, or was it iOS, or was it Android, or what was it? Was it the Newton? Who knows?
Yeah.
And I say, I used to use this app called Tweety, and Twitter bought this app, right? And I used to pull down to refresh. And I thought that is one of the greatest user interface movements that has ever happened, because Tweety was the first app that did that. You pull down to refresh. And now name an app that doesn't do that, right? Like,
right. No, you're absolutely
like
right.
Swept through everybody. Like it was the biggest thing. And people don't give Tweety credit. I'm giving Tweety, if you were still alive and listening out there, I give you credit for that, because that was a beautiful enhancement. And it just, I mean, I'm not a UI UX expert, but when I felt that, I said that is the most natural experience that I've felt at that point on a device. And I think, like, is there anything that has influenced you, like when you started in this space, that you thought, oh my God, there's just unlimited potential for this kind of stuff?
Right. Yeah. No. No. You're bringing up the pull to refresh interaction, which is fantastic. Right. It just, like you said, looks and feels incredible. It's something that makes sense conceptually. But in terms of something that inspired me was it's really the texture that is put into interface elements. In the early days of iOS, it was all glossy, right? Which now is sort of looked down on in my circles. But you know, back then that was back then I mean 3 years ago.
Yeah, so long ago.
It was yeah exactly. Which it is sort of a century ago in terms of mobile. Yep. But you know, that sort of gloss and care in each care put into each pixel, I think, is really what I'm getting at. That hadn't really been done before to that level in digital design, and seeing that on a brilliant display was pretty like the first or early generation iPhones was really enlightening. So I think that in itself, right, it was Apple's core intent to provide a great user experience, something that would change design, how design is perceived by everyone forever. Yeah.
Still, I mean, we're still feeling that change, right? And I'm going to get your opinion about Google and Android as we move forward. But
absolutely, yeah.
Because yeah, we'll come back to that because I do want to bring us back to. I mean, we skipped like nine things on the agenda here already. But I do want to bring us back to the Nets, and we're going to interject
Sure.
with some of the UX pieces, but. But it always strikes me that there's a balance that has to be made with these apps, right? And you sent me some stuff, and I was watching some interviews with some of the guys who were in charge of the Barclays Center, and they had a great point, which was quite literally, people bring these devices into venues all over the place, and their heads are down for most of whatever it is that they're looking at. Concerts, right. Sporting events. Mm-hmm. These have become interruptions to a live event, and to the point where I'm a Canadian, and I say, like, I don't even need to go to a hockey game because it's not interactive enough. I can just sit here and watch it, or I could stay at home and listen to the game and watch the game and interact with the game a little bit more than I can there. But they had a really astute thought, which was, well, why don't we bring that experience into Barclays Center, and then let everybody in there connect over Wi-Fi, and simultaneously 19 or 20,000 people connecting over Wi-Fi without any droppage, and technology there is awesome. And then, but how do you orchestrate that, where you've got the Barclays app and you've got the Nets app, and you've got to make sure that this experience is as good sitting in the stands as it is from home watching it on television. Mm-hmm. That must have been a challenge for you guys.
Absolutely. So that was one of the main challenges of the entire design process of those two apps. And really, we were faced with the explicit challenge of, we had two brands. We had the Barclays Center, we had the Nets. They had their very specific use cases and audience, right? So Barclays Center, people going to Barclays Center, I think we can assume that. Nets are Nets fans, but there's some overlap there. If we were to draw a Venn diagram of Barclays Center users and Nets users, there's definitely overlap, but it's not 100% overlap. So that was something that we really had to consider. And when we were moving through, there were some in one camp wanted all of the features in both apps, right? It would have been very easy to build two apps that had everything. Nets app has live video, Barclays Center has live video. So what we made the conscious decision to do, though, was to craft two separate experiences catered toward very focused, targeted use cases for each app and their user base. So one of the fundamental paradigms of great app design is ensuring that you're designing for a very focused use case. So we kept that in mind throughout the whole process, and really figured out how to sort of split up those features in a way that makes sense. But that doesn't mean the apps can't work together, right? So the way we pulled that off was through a tool, a technology that's called URL schemes. And that basically allows us to jump from the Nets app to the Barclays Center app from the Barclays Center app to the Nets app, all through the tap of a button. So if you're an iOS user, you don't have to open up your multitasking drawer, you don't have to double tap the home button, you don't have to go through that, I mean, let's be honest, a pretty painful app switching process in the grand scheme of app use. So we wanted to make that seamless. And we got a little more smart about it than just putting a button in the interface. We wanted to make sure that only the users that made sense for got that UI, saw that UI. So what we did was, if you are using the Brooklyn Nets application and you're in Barclays Center, you'll get a navigation element that says, hey, you should go check out the live video in the Barclays Center app. And users will be jumped right over to that Barclays Center app to experience live video. In the Barclays Center app, if you are on location at Barclays Center and there's a Nets game going on, you'll get a promotion for the Nets app, and that can jump you right over the Nets application. So the apps aren't two standalone experiences; they work together in tandem, which is nothing that I've seen done before, and it was pretty exciting to be involved in that creation process.
I mean, it's amazing what you can do with location, right? So that because everything all the live feeds are contained, right?
Yes.
Locally, right? So that you have to be in the Barclays Center to get the live feeds. Yes. And the live feeds are awesome. Like you get the net cam, you get the, yes. I was reading that even like they might put in a locker cam, which I'm not so sure about that. Right? But
my favorite idea was always putting a camera outside the bathroom, of course, but what's the line for the bathroom right now? Because it's the worst, right? You're at a game, you're at a concert, and you have to go wait in line for the bathroom for 30 minutes.
But that's what, I talked to the guys who run the Air Canada Center up here. They're in Toronto. They own the Raptors of the NBA. They own the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they own Toronto's Major League Soccer team as well. And they said that they've got, the ACC is a very connected center as well, just not as much as the Barclays Center, but what they're trying to do is create that so that within the app you guys have enabled commerce and you've enabled purchasing and you can order ahead of time and then go and pick up your food, which I think is great. And that's no joke. They said the number one request they got was, I need something that tells me how long the lineup for the washroom is. That was it, right? I don't need to pay for my food. I don't care if beer comes to my seat. I need to know how long the lineup is to the washroom. So, I mean, we joke, but it's the number one requested feature for the Air Canada Center. It's pretty ridiculous. Or there you go. Not even how long the lineup is, like, where's the shortest line, right?
Right, and right. That's a better way to think about it, yeah.
Well, sometimes Canadians and hockey, right? There's beer involved for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm with you on that, and I love this interaction that you've got between the two apps, simply because they do feed on each other, and really, I mean, the Barclays app is only relevant when you're in the Barclays Center and there's a Nets game on, right? Or there's a concert on, right?
Right.
So let me ask you, do you think that opens up opportunity for it's like an ecosystem? So when a performer comes in to the Barclays Center to perform and they have an app, do you then think about, okay, how can we integrate with that app that is a fan-based app into the Barclays Center? Like, are you thinking that way, like a jigsaw, or is it just, listen, we're going to focus on the Nets?
It could certainly move that direction, right? I mean, thinking, into the future, if Barclays Center were to get another team, right, we could certainly integrate that behavior into the Barclays Center app. Going so far to include, for example, I believe OKGo has an app that allows some fan interaction with the band. Something like that. That's a really interesting idea. It hasn't really been addressed, so maybe we should talk more about that after this.
That's right. Well, you guys can do what you want. I just think about it. It's like you could really set the tone. There was a company that was founded up here in Montreal. And the name Kangaroo TV, and it was along the same lines as what Barclays Center has done with closed loop television. It wasn't done over it was done over IP, but they came in and installed amplifiers for Wi-Fi access, local network, and it was so successful for the Miami Dolphins down in Miami Dolphins in Florida, and they the owner of the Dolphins bought this company, right? He's a billionaire and he bought this company, and it's a closed circuit television basically, but it was a separate device. And I used to talk with these guys and worked with these guys. They said, look, you got to get off your device and onto every other device that's coming in. And lo and behold, Barclays Center just did that with you guys.
Yes, yeah. And to note here, it wasn't just us, right? So the entire infrastructure and the multicast streaming technology was actually created by Cisco.
Yeah, that's wicked.
Which is great. So Cisco, we actually work directly with the Cisco software engineering teams and hardware engineering teams to make sure that this app was optimized for that network, but then also work with them to integrate their software developers kit into our app and really hone that experience to make it even better. So yeah, Cisco, I mean, if you're looking at the app, right? Speaking earlier, we were talking about the tip of the iceberg, the tip being consumer apps, the base being enterprise. The tip here, maybe more than the tip, but is the app, and then there's this entire infrastructure behind it, right? Not only Cisco's Stadium Vision mobile technology, but the Wi-Fi network at Barclays Center. I mean, they have more access points than I can count. People report getting faster than LTE download speeds when there are tens of thousands of people in the venue. So you're talking about a technology that allows you to view a live video feed. There's like a 1 to 2 second delay when there's 19,000 fans in the venue with you.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
It's absolutely incredible.
Like that must have been. Was that intimidating to go into? I mean, you're a relatively small firm, and I've spoken with big firms, right? That are like hundreds of people that are out there doing this, and I'm interested as to when you walked in and they said, okay, this is our plan, this is what we got, and this is what we're bringing to the table, and we are totally architect. Like we are doing everything you need, and the only thing what we really need on top of this is a beautiful interface that brings all that into the front, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. What are you thinking when you hit that? Like, aside from like, yeah, we won, then it's like, then what's the next reaction? Is that you're in the bigs now. Like all the other stuff, maybe GE, I don't know what's going on there, but this is like going to have, there are thousands of people that are going to use this thing every night that there's a game there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like to think about all of our projects like that. Of course, we have some high-profile clients and others that aren't as high-profile, but we like to think about all of our apps in terms of this is WillowTree quality, and there is a WillowTree quality, and it doesn't go out the door until it meets that standard. Making sure that this app was optimized for that experience was really important. And to speak about the feeling, it was obviously really exciting to be involved in that process and be involved in the integrated into the Cisco engineering team at that level.
Yeah, elation. What a great challenge is that most of the people would say, listen, we're gonna have latency on the network. We can't adjust for that. But these guys are just saying, okay, listen, we're opening the floodgates, and here's the bandwidth you need. So go.
Yeah.
Right?
This isn't to say that when we came in it was perfect, right? It was a process, like any software process, any software engineering effort. This is an iterative process where we're thinking about optimal behavior along the path. So we launched this back in September, right? So the Barclays Center app was launched in September. It didn't have live video at the time. It didn't have food ordering. Those features came into play in November, and that's when testing really started with the video feature. And it wasn't ready for the limelight until actually last Tuesday. I was at the press event at Barclays Center where it was ready, and let me tell you, this is me being maybe a little bit biased, but it was incredible to see that come to play, and actually sit there and be watching the game, watch players making baskets, and then being able to watch that on my device at a perspective that you can't get anywhere else, right? on demand anyway. So that was pretty incredible.
Do you think that this is what we're seeing here is what the Barclays Center is doing is kind of the future of live events? Some of the videos that you sent along and the articles that you sent along from The Verge and a couple of other ones, we're saying that this is, I'm a baseball fan. I mean, I love baseball. And people have accused it of being slow and plodding and boring, right? I don't know what they're talking about. They just clearly don't understand what baseball is. But there are people that think, listen, oh my God, it is, as my father said, it is like watching paint dry, right? That's what it is to him. But for me, it's a little bit deeper and more emotional. So, it's okay to think that way. But the interactive experience obviously can be extended to sporting events. But I can't, and I can see it in baseball. Hockey's a little bit faster. Basketball's fast. Football's fast, but a lot of downtime. But I'm a Springsteen fan as well, and to go to a Springsteen show and spend all my time looking at my device, no, I'm not interested in that.
Right.
So how do you balance this? I mean, is there? Are you just building for the small percentage that are going to use these things?
No, that's a really good point you bring up, and many critics of the technology that we're integrating here say just that. Well, why do we want to build something that causes people to take their attention away from the stage? They're not there to look at their phone. If they wanted to look at their phone, they'd be at home watching TV. But if you look around the venue, and I guarantee you, if you look around, maybe not the front rows of the Springsteen show where you'd be, but
that's where I'm in tears, man. I am crying at. Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm imagining. So,
nice.
So
you already, we've only spent 15 minutes together. You already know me so well, right?
Right. But if you look around the venue, you'll see hundreds of people on their device sharing photos, taking photos. There are little glowing screens all around you.
Yeah.
And if they're already using the device, why not enhance that experience even more and give them some value add that is integrated right into the venue at which you're experiencing the show.
Yeah, some advantage for being there, right? Which is closed circuit television, the net cam, instant replays, that kind of stuff. Exactly. And I think that it's a very interesting thing, and I think we're going to start to see it when the refs pull out their smartphones to see if it was a foul or if, real time in the pocket instant replays at the Barclays Center. They're going to pioneer that. Right. That's going to be pretty cool.
Absolutely, that could happen. And the way I think about it is, more of an augmented experience, right? So if you think back to the days, which this still happens, I say the days, but people go to basketball games, football games. They'll sit up in the stands and they'll have their big headsets on, listening to the radio for commentary, right? That's a form of augmenting that experience. They're getting color commentary. The announcer is giving you, the radio personality is giving you some color on what's happening on the field right now. So what we're building with Cisco here, I think, is the next stage of that augmentation process of a fan experience. Being able to provide some layered content or color on top of what you're actually experiencing in the venue or on the field or wherever you are is really how I see this technology progressing. So maybe the next stage, right now we can only view, up to 4 feeds and you can select a replay buffer and watch a 15-second replay, 30-second replay, etc. But the next stage, I think, is actually integrating other data on top of that experience, whether that's through radio broadcast streaming or, actually maybe when somebody scores, popping down their player bio and you being able to access maybe the last, a similar score or similar play at the last game. That's really where this is going, is really layering data in interesting ways on top of the fan experience in a way that's easy to use. We don't want to get too complicated.
No, I think low friction it has to be, right? So
yes.
I find it so interesting is that we live in an age where we capture as much as our lives as we ever have, right? With these smartphones that we carry around with, we're taking photos of everything, we're taking videos of everything. I'm taking more pictures than I ever have, and I'm sharing more than I ever have in my entire life, right? And I think that what a great experience, especially from a Nets, they're trying to build, and this is what VaynerMedia was talking about Sam Taggart, when I did this episode with him, is he talking about that the Nets understand that, listen, they have to build the next generation of fan up, right? They weren't the greatest team, and obviously over 2 years they've accelerated that, but they want to build a lifelong loyal fan base in Brooklyn and around. And it's an interesting play here is that, why not quantify or capture that experience for you? So if you're going to go to Barclays Center, you're going to go to Brooklyn, you're going to go see the Nets play, or even any concert playing, wouldn't it be great if you could just have a keepsake of that concert with you, or the game with you, right? So that you were there, you bought a ticket. Now, listen, I can actually on my device, I have access to that game forever, right? And all the things that are around it, and the stats and everything, to make it a personalized experience that extends the relationship with the Barclays Center and the Nets to you as a fan, and share what you need to of that. I just think, we are really now in this world of collecting a lot of this stuff and sharing a lot of this stuff. So why not make that experience, beyond the stadium, right? I think there's opportunities for all those kind of things, and who knows where they
absolutely go. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, right now there are pretty serious walls in terms of IP protection in place. But I agree with you. I think that's the next step is extending that fan experience home. And right now it's being done manually through Facebook, Twitter, being able to extend that into your personal collections elsewhere on the web. But enabling that even more, it seems like a no-brainer.
Oh, yeah. It's like, you go to an amusement park and you spend $80 to win a stuffed animal. You take it home. Same thing with this, is you take the game home with you. And I'm intrigued to see what happens at the end of the year when Google releases Google Glasses out into, or the Google Glass out into the consumer world, and what impact that has on what it is that we're talking about now, and capturing that game and broadcasting the games and...
Yeah, I mean, talk about fan augmentation, right? I mean, being able to literally augment your vision is really
pretty amazing.
Awesome. But
also IP protection, right? Some guy's going to be capturing the game from his glasses, and what are you going to do? Confiscate it? It's but we're way off. What some of the lessons that you learned from this? Was there anything that how long did it take from start to finish, from the time that you guys got in there to the time that you really feel like over the last week? So if you're watching this later on, we're talking about probably the middle of February. This went out, right, with full streaming and ordering.
Yeah.
So would you consider that kind of okay, that's a complete product that's out there now?
I consider it to be a complete product. Now, I mean, as with any mobile product or other software product, we don't really see the design or implementation as being finished, right? So we're still, there's already some ideas in the kitchen right now, really figuring out how we can make these experiences even better.
Washroom lineup.
Yeah, I know that's a great one. I really do wish we could make that happen. But one that I'm really trying to figure out is ticketing, and how we can really integrate with a ticketing provider to make that experience one tap, or maybe two tap if we can't get the one tap payment down, but making that experience seamless, because I imagine being able to integrate with the Barclays Center app, and when Beyonce announces her first show, you want to be notified when that ticket goes on sale. You could get a notification from the Barclays Center app, and within two taps you've purchased your ticket, right? I mean, that's incredible. So that's really one of the next stages, and really what I want to do with it. I don't know that it will happen. There are barriers in place, but yeah, that I mean, that's the next step, is really figuring out how to do ticketing.
And and loyalty would be a part of that, right? So Amex has the front of the line for their loyalty for their card users. Or card holders, and I think that I've benefited from being front of the line from some of the our Ottawa Senators here as an NHL hockey team, and you think, wow, if I've downloaded the Barclays Center app, I'm a pretty loyal guy towards that, and so I should get benefits. And then when I'm in the venue itself. I mean, merchandising of like, there's one thing to turn on the food purchasing piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is just,
Yes.
I mean, that's not rocket science. That's just enabling people to pay in a different way and order in a different way than walking. Right. It's
Right.
but
Right.
but to turn on merchandising and the ability to buy product, Nets product or any of the performers that are there, that product
Absolutely.
is that's got to be in the roadmap too.
Absolutely, yes, yes. Right now, the Nets shop is managed by Adidas, and we're just not there yet. But absolutely, that's definitely a next step. In general, so to bring it back just a little bit too, we have a joint venture with a company called Carbon House down in Charlotte, North Carolina. So you were thinking of Charlotte earlier, but Carbon House builds and has built venue websites for years. So they have over 50 of the U.S.'s biggest sports and entertainment venues, and they manage all their data, do their consumer-facing websites. So we partnered with them to do this Apps for Venues venture. Where we're actually building, it's a semi-turnkey solution for apps, or for venues rather, to do an Android and iOS app with a skin that can be themed for that venue's brand. Barclays Center isn't; it's a completely custom experience, but that in that space, we're always trying to figure out how to better do merchandising. And right now, we're limited to presenting a web view or a optimized website within the app. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm worried I could keep asking questions about what's going on with the Nets and Barclays Center and the experiences that you've had and the lessons that you've learned. And I do want to touch on that, but I also want to understand. Some of the UI UX tactics that you may have implemented that we haven't talked about. So why don't we talk about the last thing about the Barclays and the Nets? Was there a big lesson that you guys learned? Like, did it alter the way that you build apps? Did it alter the way that you look at UI UX? Did it was there a reckoning, a comeuppance? Did you figure something out while you were building that?
Yeah. So probably the primary thing we really, I think, figured out is how to really focus an experience for two different contextual use cases, right? So the Barclays Center app, just to make a clear-cut example, you have the in-venue experience, which is where you're going to be using live video, you're going to be using text-to-screen features, you're going to be using the bypass food purchase integration. Those features like that. But you're not necessarily going to be looking at the events list to plan your next visit to Barclays Center. Hopefully you're not if you're front stage the Springsteen show, crying your eyes out. But using the app in the venue is a very different use case than using it at home when you are planning your next visit to Barclays Center. Figuring out how to get there, what MTA lines we actually integrated directly with the MTA data feeds to provide up to the minute data on, all right, is the line I need to take to Barclays Center down right now. So that use case is very different, and we wanted to highlight that. So the way we did that was actually provide a contextual navigation feature that reprioritizes the navigation stack depending on your presence or absence within the venue. So if you're at home, you're actually presented with a menu that highlights the features that you're more likely to use at home. And quite simply, when you're in the venue connected to the Barclays Center Wi-Fi, it says, "Welcome to Barclays Center," and gives you all those live video features that are in there. Now, we don't drastically rearrange everything. It's a swap, because what we don't want to do is present them with a massively confusing experience. Like, I thought this schedule was here and now it's here. So we reorganized it in a way I think that makes sense and it's clear. But that's something that was really interesting, because what we didn't want to do is create a kind of an unusable experience, or what seems like what's an unusable experience for the at-home Barclays Center user. Because yes, the live video feature, the food ordering features, those are all really great, and they're really the what makes this app very special. But the more utilitarian features, like the schedule, are also really important, and we wanted to make sure that the at-home users found those in an easy-to-use way.
And realize that they can't order food and have it delivered to their home, right?
Right. So how frustrating is that? You have all these features that are highlighted at the top of your navigation stack that seem like, hey, they want me to tap this, so I'm going to tap it, and then it just tells me that I have to be there in order to use it. So that's frustrating.
It's a very, I mean, I love that approach because you're using location and context, and there's going to be a time when everybody realizes that IP and licensing and how that's going to work. Major League Baseball does this really well with their MLB.TV. Is that there's got to be a way at some point to subscribe to Nets games where I can actually have it broadcast on my device, and as I'm watching the game, I can pay an extra fee to the Nets or Barclays Center to be able to get like $9 a month to be able to get the hoop feed or the closed circuit television. And I just you must look at this, and I do, from a business standpoint, think, oh my God, what they've done is opened up revenue opportunity upon revenue opportunity beyond
Absolutely.
What they're doing right now.
Yes, absolutely. And really to echo that, there are revenue opportunities right now that aren't being taken advantage of necessarily, but they're possible technically with the Cisco technology and our app that we made for Barclays Center. When you're in the venue, and you probably noticed this, but when there's a sponsorship opportunity up on the like on the jumbotron and all the ribbon TVs around the bowl, there's what's called a moment of exclusivity, which is when one sponsor gets every ad space in the venue. So think about the opportunity then. If you have a critical mass of fans watching a live video feed on one of these, you can actually do that with the Cisco technology. So with Stadium Vision Mobile, you can extend that moment of exclusivity for a sponsor onto fans' devices. So that's it's a very powerful but simple execution of a revenue opportunity. Yeah.
And it'll come, I suppose. I mean, you're only a week in.
Right. Yes. Exactly. We're only a week in, so we're
going to slow down.
Still, yeah.
It's okay. Well, I mean, I love it. I think that this blurring of technology and venue and location and all of those kind of things, and the execution that you guys have done, the way that you've constructed this, handcrafted these applications, giving it thought to use case situations, and then having the ability to expand on them when you need to, I think is pretty incredible, and I can't wait to reconnect with you in 6 months after the end of the season and see how the reaction was, because I always think that year one of something like this. Test. Year two is revenue driven, right? Like, you know what?
Absolutely.
There's an altruism here. We're going to test it. We're going to figure this out. But year two, we got to start paying for Cisco's connection. We got to start paying for the fiber that we've laid. We got to start paying for the cameras. We got to start paying for everything. And I believe that wholeheartedly that what you guys are doing and what the Barclays Center is doing and what the Nets are doing will come back many times over in revenue generation. Boy, oh boy.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, I do want to ask. What about as we're rapidly running out of time, and time is only context to calendar.
Yeah.
But
yes. I'm
very interested to know, like, is there anything we didn't even talk about The Verge? We're gonna have to come back and talk about The Verge because I'm so intrigued by that and how you landed those guys. But we're gonna come back to that.
Okay.
I'll have you back again to talk about that. But the three things that are there any mobile strategies, anything that you're seeing out there that people are missing, that you can impart something? The experience that you've had with some of the greatest apps, right, and best brands, what have you learned that you're looking around saying, only those guys did it this way, right? Is there anything that you can impart?
So this actually extends the Barclays Center and Nets conversation
All right, that's fine.
Into this. Yeah, which
I just tried to wrap it up gracefully. That's okay.
Yeah. No. I'll bring that conversation
okay,
back
good.
and take it up a level. Actually,
I am out of control. This whole thing is out of control now.
Abstracting the Barclays Center and Nets concepts, right? So those apps at their core are second screen technology, right? So they're a screen that enhances enhances some other experience, or they can be used by themselves, but really they are a second screen experience.
Absolutely.
And that's something that's a trend that we're seeing across all of our clientele and in the industry in general. So my recommendation and what, my one of my top mobile strategies right now isn't really a mobile strategy at all. It's a screen strategy. So make sure that your organization is considering multi-screen design patterns. So not necessarily mobile, but thinking about how people use screens in their life and with your product. For example, Google, there's a Google study back from September called the Multi-Screen World, and they were really examining how people interact from, across this device to this device, to their laptop, to their TV, to their, the interface in their car, etc. Really from that, they discovered that 90% of our media interactions are screen-based. So that's smartphone to TV versus, newspaper, radio, etc. And there are two types of those interactions: sequential or simultaneous. Simultaneous is when I'm multitasking, like if I'm browsing Twitter while watching TV, not really related. But then the sequential actions and sequential use of multiple screens is really when you are searching. You start a search for maybe a hotel on your smartphone, and then you actually complete that transaction on your laptop. And that sort of thinking is really important. So actually, just a few weeks ago, I noticed the relaunched Dig application really executes this in a way it's very easy to understand, which is when I'm browsing an article in the iPhone app, and say I'm browsing an article about gun violence, and I'm browsing that article, I close it, I go to my iPad, and I open the Dig app, and it actually tells me, hey, we noticed you were looking at this article on your iPhone. Do you want us to bring it up for you here? So they're thinking about how people are actually using multiple screens in their life and really thinking about that sequential use case. So that is what really right now in the industry we're recommending to all of our clients. Think about how people are using your content, your data, your service across multiple devices.
I love it. I love that. I mean, it's so important, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And to know which is the one that you should be using.
Right.
And I think that's something that's very interesting. Are you a companion to something else? Mobile is becoming, and when you take these things together, right? It becomes the first screen, right? This whole second screen stuff is so funny because we're so worried about how these devices interact with what's on the screen. And what I see right now, and you must see this as well, like some of your clients, is that it's like, why are you competing with your own stuff? Like, why are you taking, like, why are you transmitting, like I see the networks doing this, newspapers, magazines, media, they're taking the same stuff that they're putting in print and on the web and putting it on here. And that's not a multi-screen strategy, right?
Right, exactly. That's exactly right. So what we recommend against is taking your website and shrinking it down for display on mobile.
It's crazy.
Right?
Why do people do that? Like the newspaper industry killed themselves by bringing their print product onto the web, right? In hindsight, they should never have done that, right? Because now they've set this expectation that all the content is free. But magazines are doing it. Television stations are doing it. Now, I can watch the same shows everywhere. But look, what's wrong? Like, the whole reason people advertise in television and the newspapers is because there's an audience there. So if you're not driving people at 8 o'clock on a Tuesday night to that television station, it's not valuable anymore, right? So,
right.
Yeah, I love the multi-screen sequential versus simultaneous, understanding that, and I think that's so important. So important.
It is. It's very, very important. It is.
I said I'd come back to Google, and it's going to be my last question here.
Okay.
You're carrying an iPhone, right? You got an iPhone?
I am. It's an iPhone 5.
Yep.
I like it a lot.
Yeah, I have one as well. Now, you've been around long enough in the UI UX world to understand the evolution that Google has gone through over the last year, right? What do you think about the product that they're putting out right now?
So I'm going to go back and say that yes, I definitely understand the evolution. Probably better than anyone, just because we've been building Android apps for 3 years.
Yes.
And 3 years ago, we were in a space where Apple had at the time a very refined paradigm set up for user interfaces. And that actually comes from what's called the Human Interface Guidelines. It's a 150-page document that tells you how you should build an iPhone app and design an iPhone app and think about an iPhone app, right? Google didn't really have that. They had some developer guidelines that had some, maybe how to put an icon together for an app.
Would you say it was engineer led?
It was. It was heavily targeted toward an engineer hacking together an Android app, which is great. It contributes to the open environment that Android has set up. But over time, they've become very sophisticated with their design paradigms. With the release of Hollow, the Hollow theme for Ice Cream Sandwich 4.0, really Android has made great strides to providing a consistent and much more usable level of application standards that has really benefited Android ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all seen this, right? Even internally, the way that they build their apps, the new Google Maps version, especially on iOS and even Android before that, and I think that they've and Google now and a lot of the product that they're coming out with, just from a usability standpoint, is completely different than a year ago, isn't it?
Massively different, massively so. And a lot of the apps that are out there are being redesigned. Actually, The Verge, we did a complete Hollow redesign. I don't know if you saw, if you've been following the Verge Android app, but it came from a sort of a tabular layout, which was based on some UI standards in 2.3 or Gingerbread.
Yes.
We really brought that to modern times, so to speak, with updating that for Hollow, and now it's one of my favorite Android apps. So that, I mean, Android's really come a long way, and I think they're continuing to make really advanced forward strides in design. But what's really interesting about Android to me is the way that apps can talk to each other much more effectively than they can in the iOS ecosystem. It really speaks to how Google thought of Android as an open platform that's based heavily on the way the web works, right? And I really appreciate that. So being able to jump from app to app, the Android system of intents and sharing across applications is really powerful. From a development standpoint, that is one of our greatest tools.
So do you think, I mean, have they, like from a UI UX experience, like combine those two, and compare it to what's going on in the Apple world? A lot of people are grumbling about the Apple experience. I mean, it's hard to grumble about an Apple experience. I mean, it's a very seamless experience, and I think that they're focusing on things like iCloud and continuity with your work and continuity with your files and accessing them from everywhere, right? And it's something that I've longed for forever, and I really appreciate the fact that they do this. But from a UI UX standpoint, are they on par now? Are Android and Apple in terms of development standards? Are they on par? Is one still ahead, or is one passing the other? Like, do you have an opinion about that?
I do. So Android is, in my opinion, still slightly behind iOS, which makes sense, right? Apple's been doing this for a long time, but they've made such rapid progress that I think they could surpass in terms of quality and consistency iPhone apps. But I don't think that will ever happen in a practical way because of the lack of review process. The bar for Apple and iOS apps is set so much higher by virtue of that review process, because I know as a developer, my app and my app's interface is going to be scrutinized. I'm probably going to put a lot more time and care into the interface than if I could, just go create an Android app, and it's going to be propagated across the Google Play Store in a matter of hours. Yeah. So that's critical, I think, in understanding the difference between the quality of the spaces. But
yeah, the gate makes the difference.
It makes a huge difference. Yeah.
And I've talked to there's a New York-based app called Spun, getspun.com, and Timber, which is a music discovery application. And these guys have been very successful in getting the attention of Apple. And the power that it wields is pretty incredible. When you're a new and notable or a featured application, they're getting hundreds and hundreds of thousands of downloads as a result. And that's a pretty powerful channel still. And they said that they built with a they put a conscious effort into their design and their UI and what they did and made it innovative so that it got the attention of Apple and the Apple people, so that there's a higher likelihood of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, in some ways, that's still like, an actor going to LA to become a famous, Hollywood star.
That doesn't
it really
work
is. It will increase your odds, but there's absolutely no guarantee.
Yeah.
Absolutely no guarantee. Apple, will, we've had a few apps featured by Apple. Baby Sinners was one. Steve Jobs actually used I believe it was the pregnancy classes app that we designed and built on stage at the iPad 2 announcement, which was great. But yeah, it's in many ways similar to the LA actor Hollywood scenario.
So don't quit your day job. And I think
right.
I love competition, and so I'm a Canadian. We have a company up here called BlackBerry.
I've heard of it.
You've heard of it? Do you get? This is my last question, Blake, and I'm going to let you go.
Okay.
Do you get any demand for BlackBerry? Do somebody throw you like an app and say make this work in BlackBerry, would you please?
Yes. 2 years ago, we had some BlackBerry demand, but at the time it was incredibly difficult to build for. And by that I mean the actual deployment process and testing process was rather terrible by any standard compared to iOS and Android and how those processes work. So as a result, it made our development costs a little more costly because it just took more time to build a decent BlackBerry app. Now with the new BlackBerry releases, that could change. That could all change very well. So far we're not seeing much demand, but we do have developers capable of building on the BlackBerry SDK. So we will welcome that with open arms if it comes.
That's great. Speaking of developers, you're obviously in a hiring mode, aren't you?
We absolutely are. We're hiring roughly 2 to 3 a month right now across all platforms. So we build we have an iOS team, an Android team, a DevOps team or backend systems team, and a web applications team that builds both desktop responsive and mobile web apps. And then of course the design team, which I head up. So we're definitely hiring across all fronts. So if anybody who's watching is interested, please get in touch.
My goodness. So let's point him somewhere. I've spent 1 hour and 7 minutes with you on this episode, and I swear I could go another hour with you. So we're gonna end this, but we're gonna come back and do it again. So where do I send people?
So if you check out WillowTreeApps.com, so WillowTreeApps.com. You can hit the careers page there, and it tells you how to get in touch.
It's just easy like that.
Very easy, yeah.
WillowTreeApps.com, exactly how it sounds. Go and hit them up.
Yes.
There's careers there. I'm going to pull this image up right now. I love this image. It's a great image with the Apple and the Android. Yeah, it's great.
On your
careers page. So go check it out. Now that I've intrigued you who are listening, not watching, go and check that out at WillowTreeApps.com. Blake, I can't thank you enough for your insight. Your time here it's been incredible. Congratulations on what you've done with the Nets and Barclays Center, with The Verge, with GE, with Valpak, you name it. I definitely want to have you back on because I do want to talk about some of the other UI UX tactics. I want to talk a little bit more about the Verge stuff.
Absolutely.
So we'll give it some time, let people digest this, and I'll get you back on.
Great.
If you're up for that.
Let's do it.
Yeah. This has been very cool. Charlottesville, Virginia, not Charlotte, North Carolina.
Right. Charlottesville, Virginia.
I am Canadian.
It's a beautiful place to live. home of Thomas Jefferson's Monticello,
Nice.
and the University of Virginia.
Yes, and you built that out,
Yeah,
didn't you?
and we did build that
There
out.
you go.
Yes.
See, you can't go too far. I
Right.
love these stories of companies that you and I probably have not you, Blake. You've heard of this company, but you and I,
Yes.
the listener, has not heard of these companies that are building some of the most innovative technologies and innovative apps. And most handcrafted, beautiful interfaces you've ever seen. So I love bringing these. And if you do, why don't you just reach out, hit up? Blake, are you on Twitter?
I am. Yeah, I'm B Sirach, Bisirach.
Okay. So
Yeah.
do me a favor, hit him up, thank him for being on this episode, thank him for offering some insight into what he's been up to. It would do me a favor, do him a favor, and I mean it's great currency for all of us. So please, hit him up. And Blake, I thank you so much for doing this.
Great. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
For everyone, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, you could be sitting at home, you could be sitting on the couch, you could be driving, you could be doing anything. I really appreciate you coming back here, episode after episode after episode. Please reach out. If you have any comments, questions, if you have any suggestions, I'd love to hear from you, Rob at Untether.tv. And we'll see you next time on Untether.tv. Thanks, Blake.
Thanks.